My mistress is pregnant. We're getting divorced. The words were so sudden, I stopped washing the dishes mid-motion. Mistress. Pregnant. Divorce. I repeated the words in my head. I knew Elliot had been obsessed with a younger woman, but I didn't expect this. After I finished the dishes, I wiped my hands on my apron and walked into the living room. Elliot tensed up, bracing himself, but unfortunately for him, he wasn't my concern. I opened a drawer in the cabinet, pulled out what I had prepared, and held it out to him. It was something I had been secretly keeping ready for a while. Here's the divorce papers. I'm done with the caregiving. What? No, you still have to take care of her. No, I don't. Because that woman. I paused deliberately before delivering the cruel truth, fully aware that it would cut him deep. My name is Samantha Adams. I'm a 38-year-old full-time housewife. I've never been the type to cling to the idea of a family. My mother passed away before I could even remember her, and my father remarried and built a new family. With nowhere else to go, I was taken in and raised by my paternal aunt. It wasn't so much that I craved parental love, I think I just developed a habit of always observing from a distance. I met my husband, Elliot Adams, who is 15 years older than me, when I was 20 and working as a receptionist. We were introduced by an acquaintance. He's divorced, but he's a really nice guy, they told me. And sure enough, he seemed like a mature, dependable man. He was soft-spoken, always polite. He told me he hadn't had any children in his previous marriage, and maybe out of some strange sense of sympathy, I agreed to marry him when I was 23. At Elliot's request, we didn't have a big wedding, but I've always treasured the photos from our reception. In one, I'm smiling modestly while Elliot gently places his arm around my shoulder, looking peaceful. I believed in the future captured in that photo. Elliot's mother, Caitlin, was already in her 70s at the time and living alone in the family home. She was a dignified and graceful woman. This used to be a prestigious family in this area, she once said. Behind her stood a carefully maintained traditional room and many furnishings that clearly had been treasured for years. I had heard that her late husband had made his fortune in real estate. She didn't talk much about herself, but it seemed she came from a distinguished background. After our marriage, I left my job and moved into a condo near downtown, living alone with Elliot. We had the sweet time typical of newlyweds. As a housewife, I took pride in supporting him behind the scenes while he focused on his demanding job. But about a year into our marriage, I discovered Elliot's first affair. It started with a necklace I found stuffed carelessly into a drawer in the living room. It was clearly for a woman, flashy and a bit childish, something a younger girl might choose. After agonizing over it for a night, I decided to confront Elliot directly. Elliot, whose is this? It was a weekday morning. I picked that busy moment before he left for work on purpose. I thought he might let the truth slip. I tried to sound casual, but Elliot, who had been reading the paper at the dining table, reacted sharply. Huh? Why would you ask something like that? His voice rose, and he exaggeratedly furrowed his brow. That was his tell whenever he had something to hide. He was basically admitting it. Like a wild animal on alert, he glared at me and I knew. You're cheating, aren't you? Another woman's been in this house, hasn't she? What are you thinking? Ugh. This is ridiculous. Since when did you turn into such a paranoid woman? If I found something like this, of course I'd start questioning. If you're innocent, can you just explain it properly? Ugh. You're so annoying. This conversation is over. I'm going to work. Elliot walked out the door like he was running away. Every movement he made sent a chill through my chest. I hired a private investigator, and as it turned out, Elliot really was cheating. The woman was a temporary employee at his office. She was younger than I was at the time, and had only just started the job. When I confronted him again with the evidence I had gathered, he flew into a rage. It seemed like his anger at being accused outweighed any panic over being caught. If I started looking at other women, it's because you're not attractive anymore. I was speechless. Yes, it hurt, but more than that, I was just stunned. I couldn't even bring myself to argue. I see. I didn't cry or get angry. I just shut down my emotions and went back to doing chores. Sadly, that's the kind of woman I was. About a week of cold silence passed between us. Then one day, Elliot came home on time for once, holding a designer shopping bag and a bouquet of flowers. What is this? I'm sorry. Let's just call it even. I already broke things off with her. His apology felt more like a business deal. The bouquet was made of bright roses, and the scent was overpowering. Inside the bag was a purse with a flashy brand logo. It was completely different from my taste. Thanks. That's all I said, and I tucked the purse away in the back of a drawer. The flowers, I threw away without even putting them in a vase. Looking back, that was the first real crack in our marriage. In the years that followed, Elliot's affairs became a recurring pattern. Each time, it was with someone new. A secretary, a client hostess, another temp worker. The proof was always obvious, but Elliot never once showed any sign of remorse. Again, the third time, I couldn't help but say something bitter out loud. Elliot didn't even bother to apologize anymore. Don't say again. I'll buy you something nice this time. That was when I finally realized it. To him, I was nothing more than a convenient tool to make his life comfortable. I could imagine now why his previous marriage ended. She must have been hurt the same way I was, and eventually, her love for him faded. Ever since we got married, I had hoped we'd have children. For someone like me, who had so few warm memories with my own parents, building a new family of my own had been one of my life's goals. A peaceful daily life with my husband and children. That quiet little dream was what kept me going. But no matter how many years passed, I never showed any signs of pregnancy. At first, Elliot would laugh and say, "There's no need to rush," but over time, he began to frown every time the topic came up. One day, I finally gathered the courage to bring up the idea of fertility testing. "Hey, what do you think about going in for some tests together? I found a few good clinics we could try." What the hell is that supposed to mean? Are you saying this is my fault? Elliot's tone shifted instantly, and I instinctively clammed up. I hadn't meant to accuse him. I just wanted to understand our options. But he reacted like I had insulted him. That's not it. I just thought if we knew more, we could think more positively about the future. What? There's no need for that. If you want to get tested, go to the clinic yourself. His detached response left me speechless. From that day on, something inside me began to crumble. In the end, he kept refusing the tests and never once tried to understand how I felt. Worse yet, he would casually throw out comments that cut deep into my heart. "If we can't have kids, maybe it's because you're too stressed." What do you mean? I mean, you're mentally too fragile. Do you really think someone like that would make a good mother? Honestly, we don't need kids. Life's already good enough, isn't it? And I knew full well that in his version of good enough, other women often played a part. A message that flashed briefly on his phone, the secret late-night outings, the lingering scent of perfume. Where were you? Does it matter? But going out this late at night, you're so annoying. Are you trying to keep tabs on me? I knew that Elliot was still involved with multiple women, just as before, and I knew he felt no guilt about it. Even if he shut me down every time, I couldn't stop myself from asking. While cooking dinner, I would wonder, will he come home tonight? I always welcomed him with a smile, but his eyes were always staring off somewhere distant. No matter how hard I tried to talk to him, I'd get nothing back but a sigh or silence. There was no real conversation between us as husband and wife. We had money, but there was no love. When it came to children or fertility treatments, we remained at odds. Then one day, Elliot made it crystal clear. I don't want kids anymore. It's a hassle. Just too much trouble. His tone made it sound like I, too, was a burden. Okay. I'll give up on having children. Good. I'm glad you understand. With that, he left again for another night out. But I couldn't let go. I still hoped that if he changed, maybe we could bring back those days when I felt loved. That hope was the only thing I held on to. It was 8 years ago when Caitlin had a stroke. Thankfully, they caught it early and her life wasn't in danger, but the right side of her body was left paralyzed. She would need help with daily activities from then on. When I heard the news in the hospital waiting room, I immediately thought, I want to do whatever I can. But it turned out I wasn't the one who got to decide whatever I can meant. One day, just before Caitlin's discharge from the hospital, Elliot spoke to me. He said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. From now on, we'll live at my parents' house. You'll take care of my mom. What? I thought your mother was going to a care facility. What are you talking about? Putting your own mother in a facility? That's just heartless. You're a housewife, right? You're home all day. So I'm counting on you. Without any discussion, I was simply told that we would be living together and that I would be the caregiver. Though I was shocked and confused, in the end, I had no choice but to nod in agreement. I suppose it was because I had convinced myself that this was the role of a wife in the Addams family. And so, our life together at his family home began. Each morning started at 5 a.m., with helping Caitlin use the bathroom and get dressed. Then came preparing breakfast, assisting her with eating, managing her medication, and spending the day supporting her rehabilitation and keeping her company. In between caregiving tasks, I would clean and do the laundry, run errands, and handle paperwork at city offices. At night, I prepared Elliot's dinner and drinks, helped Caitlin bathe, and assisted her into bed. By the end of each day, my body felt as heavy as lead. Caitlin herself was a refined and gentle woman. She wasn't very talkative, but she always greeted my help and meals with a soft smile and kind words like, "Thank you," or "That really helps." The truth is, those small words from her were what kept me going. Feeling needed by someone had the power to hold off the emptiness. But in the middle of this life, there was something I had noticed and chosen to ignore. It was the cold look Caitlin occasionally gave. Just for a moment, as she took a teacup from my hands, the way she looked at Elliot's back seemed to hold something like hatred. "Caitlin, how was lunch today?" "Oh, it was very good. I really must thank you." There was no edge in her words. If anything, they were overly polite. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was burning deep in her eyes. I had no way to confirm it, but the feeling stayed with me as a certainty. As for Elliot, he treated his mother's care like it had nothing to do with him. Each morning, he'd head out saying, "Take care of Mom," and in the evening, he'd just ask, "How is she today?" He never once showed any concern for the effort it took to care for her. I tried to keep my emotions calm, like still water, but my limit came sooner than I expected. It was one night during the 15th year of our marriage. While I was cleaning up after dinner, I suddenly felt someone watching me from the living room. When I looked up, there was Elliot on the couch, staring at me. Then, with an oddly refreshed look on his face, he said, "My mistress is pregnant. We're getting divorced." The words were so sudden, I stopped washing the dishes mid-motion. Mistress. Pregnant. Divorce. I repeated the words in my head. I knew Elliot had been obsessed with a younger woman, but I didn't expect this. After I finished the dishes, I wiped my hands on my apron and walked into the living room. Elliot tensed up, bracing himself, but unfortunately for him, he wasn't my concern. I opened a drawer in the cabinet, pulled out what I had prepared, and held it out to him. It was something I had been secretly keeping ready for a while. "Here are the divorce papers. I'm done with caregiving." "What?" "No, you have to keep taking care of her." "No, I don't. Because that woman." I paused deliberately before telling him the cruel truth, knowing full well it would cut him deeply. "She has no intention of leaving you a single penny. I took care of her because she was family. But that's not the case anymore. Why would I take care of a stranger when there's nothing in it for me?" A brief silence. Elliot twisted his thin lips and said bitterly, "What kind of nonsense is that? No matter what Mom says, once she dies, her inheritance will come to me, her son. I'll give you a share then. So just shut up and keep taking care of her." "I figured you didn't know. Let me explain. Caitlin's assets are already gone." "What?" "She already gave everything to your brother as a living inheritance. Over 10 years ago." I looked into it quietly. "Just to be sure. I even confirmed it with your brother himself." Her brother, of course, was Elliot's older brother Luke, 6 years his senior. Luke had been in advertising, but retired early in his 40s and now lived a relaxed life with his family in the countryside. He and Elliot had never gotten along, and they had barely spoken since becoming adults. I had only met Luke a handful of times, mostly since our wedding. Naturally, when Elliot heard that his mother had given her entire estate to Luke, he flew into a rage. What? Why the hell would Mom do that? She never told me. I don't know. I never really understood her true reasons. She never opened up to me either. She always smiled and thanked me. But there was a certain coldness. I just pretended not to notice. Don't give me that. Then what was the point of living together? Was that your goal all along, to get her inheritance? He didn't answer my question. He just clenched his fists in frustration. I knew his family had money, but to be honest, I never expected anything from the inheritance. She was my mother-in-law, after all. I believed it was my duty to help her as family. But for him, it was different. Only now did I truly realize everything, from caregiving to living under the same roof, had always been about the return. Elliot suddenly stood up with force. He clearly couldn't hold back his anger any longer. Faced with divorce papers and the truth about the inheritance, he stormed into Caitlin's room. Hey, Mom. Samantha told me. You gave all your money to Luke? Is that true? I followed him into the room, where Caitlin lay in bed. She slowly turned her face toward us. There was a faint smile on her lips, but a cold light glimmered in her eyes. It's true. Don't mess with me. I've been living here all this time, taking care of you. And now you're giving everything to my brother? What the hell are you thinking? That's insane. Caitlin exhaled quietly and looked down, because the only son I ever had was Luke. Silence fell over the room. I stood by the wall, saying nothing, just listening to the two of them. What are you talking about? I'm your son, aren't I? No. You are the child of that man, your father, and his mistress. The woman died during childbirth. So he had no choice but to bring you, just a baby at the time, back to this house. It felt like I could hear the sound of every word piercing Elliot's chest like a blade. I did raise you. But I never once truly loved you. Because to me, you were the living proof of his betrayal. No, that can't be. I always thought I was family. You're someone else's child. Nothing more, nothing less. No matter how devoted you were to caregiving, it didn't move my heart. A choked sound escaped Elliot. His shoulders trembled. I couldn't help but let out a quiet laugh. So that's what it was after all. The reason Caitlin was cold to Elliot, the disgust hiding behind her smile, everything made sense now. Mom. Elliot tried to speak, but Caitlin sharply cut him off. Don't call me that. Hearing you say mother makes my skin crawl. That's way too harsh. This is how I truly feel. You'll be left with nothing. Not this house, not the inheritance, and not even a family. Elliot was silent for a long time. His eyes were vacant, his complexion ashen. When our eyes met, he seemed like he wanted to say something, but I had no intention of comforting him. So you were never really her son. Oh, but I guess you do take after your father in some ways. Like that cheating habit, for example. Shh. Shut up. Your real parents are both gone. Now you're getting divorced from me. You're completely alone in the world. Poor thing. He bit his lip as I let out a soft chuckle. I'm sure he was deeply hurt, but that wasn't my fault. This was the price of his past catching up with him. He brought this upon himself. Elliot sat there, crushed by the truth of his own origin. Meanwhile, Caitlin's expression remained calm, her eyes holding a look of quiet resignation. Also, you were never capable of having children. What? When you were 5, you caught the mumps. Even though you had a fever, I didn't take you to the hospital. I left you to suffer with a high fever on purpose. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and neither could Elliot, I'm sure. Caitlin had always acted graciously, never forgetting to thank me with a smile. I had sensed there was some tension between her and Elliot, but I never imagined the hatred she harbored ran this deep. To be honest, I was hoping you'd just die. You were the son of the woman who destroyed my family. I couldn't stand the sight of you. But you stubbornly survived. What does that mean? I can't have children. Yes. You'll never be able to have your own child. You're infertile. That high fever back then is the reason. I never told you, though. Who would believe something like that? Then I pulled my phone from my pocket and brought up the screen. It showed the results of a home fertility test kit. Right after he told me he didn't want kids, I secretly collected a sample and sent it to a private research lab. When I held the phone up to him, Elliot turned pale and began to shake. When he didn't say anything, I turned the screen toward Caitlin. Caitlin, please take a look. It was 0, just like you said. She glanced at the phone and smiled, narrowing her eyes in satisfaction. Well, serves him right. As she laughed dryly, a loud bang rang through the room. Elliot had slammed his fist into the wall. His face was bright red, and his hands were clenched tightly. This is a lie. You faked it. I'm not going to believe it. Then go to a hospital and get an official test. When you see it with your own eyes, you'll know neither of us was lying. Don't mess with me. Unable to contain his frustration and anger, he punched the wall again. Then, seemingly overwhelmed by his own emotions, he stormed out of the house without a word. A heavy silence settled over the room. I let my shoulders relax and exhaled deeply. It's over now. Yes. Though maybe it should have ended a long time ago. The moment I met Caitlin's gaze, I felt something shift between us. For the first time, it felt like we were truly connected, united by the common enemy that was Elliot. Eventually, Caitlin muttered, "You're stronger than I thought." No. I just keep everything in until I hit my limit. I see. So what will you do now? Do you have somewhere to go? For now, until things are settled with him, I'd like to stay here. We didn't speak for a while. We just stood together, staring out the window. In the garden of the family home, spring was beginning to show its signs. Like the flowers about to bloom, maybe I too could finally become free. The place Elliot ran to after storming out was the clinic. He couldn't accept the results of the home test I had shown him. Muttering, "I can't trust this," he scheduled an appointment at a major hospital's urology department and went through with the official testing. But 1 week later, the paper handed to him by the doctor spelled out the dry reality. The diagnosis and the words, "natural conception is impossible," finally silenced him. That evening, the front door slammed shut. I paused folding laundry in the living room and looked up. Elliot stormed into the room, clearly seething with rage. So, that means, she's pregnant with someone else's child. Finally figured it out, huh? Something that obvious. No. No, that can't be. Diane loved me. We promised to get married. Diane. That was the name of Elliot's mistress. According to the information I had gathered through a private investigator, she was a 23-year-old former hostess. Elliot, who had gone from one woman to another for years, had recently become completely fixated on Diane. He gave in to her every demand, buying her anything and everything without hesitation. I calmly handed him a stack of documents I had prepared in advance. It was a detailed investigation report from the past several months. It listed Diane's behavior, her social circle, and even the names of other men she had been involved with at the same time. If you read this, you'll see. She has more than one daddy, not just you. And also, I held up my phone screen. There, a series of posts from Diane's secret social media account were displayed. My main sugar daddy doesn't know. But I still want that child support money. Met someone on an app recently. He's not single, but he's loaded. If I don't let them test me, they won't know. If they don't know, I win. What is this? Are you saying Diane wrote all this? Yes, it's her private account. Elliot's face went pale in an instant. His fists trembled as he collapsed into the back of the sofa. Then, whose child is Diane carrying? I don't know. But we do know, medically, that it's not yours. Elliot stared down in stunned silence, unable to say a word. After a long moment of blank disbelief, he stumbled out of the house. He looked like a ghost, unable to find peace. There was a time when I couldn't even imagine seeing someone as arrogant as him in such a pitiful state. 1 month after Elliot left the house, a conference room in a law office was wrapped in an eerie silence. Soft spring sunlight filtered through the windows, reflecting off the glass table. In contrast to that gentle light, Elliot's face across from me was completely drained of color. "Thank you for taking the time to meet today," I said calmly, glancing at the attorney beside me, Kevin. He nodded slightly and began laying out the documents in front of him. Then, in a composed tone, he started explaining the claim for divorce compensation and division of assets. Elliot suddenly straightened up from his hunched position and spoke in a pitiful voice. "I'll agree to the divorce. I was the one who brought it up, after all. And, well, I guess I can accept the compensation too. But dividing the assets." With each round of discussion, Elliot's face grew even more pale. "There's one more thing. It's not directly related to the case, but I want to mention it anyway." Once the divorce conversation had come to a pause, I took an envelope from my bag. Inside was a medical certificate from my gynecological exam. The truth was, while Elliot had been rushing to the urologist, I too had visited a gynecologist and had a thorough exam. The doctor told me I have no issues with natural pregnancy. My eggs are healthy, and I've already had some frozen for the future. In other words, I was not the reason we couldn't have children. Elliot's face contorted with pain. It must have felt like a dagger piercing his pride as a man. "There's no need to bring that up now. You blamed me for being infertile. And yet, I don't hate you for it. Because your foolishness set me free." I smiled. Then I stood up. "Kevin, I'll leave the rest to you." "Yes. From here on, we'll handle everything regarding this matter. Please refrain from contacting Samantha directly." Elliot sat motionless, his gaze lowered in defeat. For the first time, I thought I saw a glimmer of tears in his eyes, but I never looked back. This was the final act of my story. I opened the heavy door and breathed in the soft spring breeze, filling my chest with it. Of course, I hadn't forgotten to file a compensation claim against Diane. Kevin sent the formal notice on my behalf, and we kept contact with her to the absolute minimum. But it must have struck a nerve. "You've got to be kidding me. There's no way I'm paying a single cent in damages." She reportedly called Kevin's office repeatedly, yelling into the phone. But he handled her firmly and calmly, driving her away. Realizing she had no leverage over me, Diane turned her frustration toward Elliot and stormed into his workplace. She shouted at the reception desk, in front of a crowd of employees, "Elliot, get out here. You got me pregnant and now you're bailing? You're the worst. What kind of ethics does this company have? Pay child support." Naturally, the commotion spread through the company in no time. Elliot was summoned to HR and forced to write a formal apology. He wept as he pleaded his case to his supervisor, but by then, Diane's outburst had already done more than enough damage. A week later, Elliot was reassigned to a remote department. Removed from the high-profile sales division, he spent his days quietly sorting documents where no one would see him. At work, people had started calling him the ghost manager. After that, it was like Elliot became a different person, completely drained of energy. Even when he showed up, he just sat at his desk all day. There were sightings of him during lunch breaks, standing alone by the emergency stairwell, staring at his phone. He tried job hunting, but his age and the scandal worked against him. No one would hire him. Eventually, he showed up at the front gate of the family home and called me. He didn't sound anything like the arrogant man he used to be. There was no confidence, no presence, just the weak voice of a tired middle-aged man and the soft knock of a hand without strength. "Samantha, please. Just open the door. Let me talk to you, just once." Truthfully, the locks had already been changed. That was Caitlin's decision. She had declared, "Elliot is banned," and though it wasn't said aloud, I knew it was my job to deliver the message. So I opened the door slightly, without a word. "What do you want?" "You already know. Things are hard for me right now. Please, just let me come back home, just for a little while." That's not going to happen. It was your mother's decision to turn Elliot away. In other words, you have no place here anymore. Too bad you came all this way. So that's it? I get turned away at the door? Then where the hell am I supposed to go? Looking at him standing there like a lost child, I couldn't help but feel a genuine sense of satisfaction. Smiling faintly, I gave him the final push. I don't know. Go wherever you like. I've finally taken back my life. Don't ever show your face to me again. Please wait. Samantha. Try to convince Mom. If you don't, goodbye. Forever. Take care, ghost with no home. With that, I quietly closed the door. I could still sense his presence outside, but I never opened it again. What was once such a central figure in my life, the role of a husband, was now fading into little more than a shadow in my memory. From here on, it's my life. I intend to live it fully, without interference. About 6 months after I last saw Elliot, the divorce was finalized without a hitch. The compensation, the division of assets, everything went exactly as I had hoped. Elliot shrank behind Kevin the entire time. The arrogant man who once barked orders was nowhere to be found. His relationship with Diane had collapsed too, apparently. Whether the pregnancy had been a lie or she really was trying to pass someone else's child off as his, I don't know. All I heard was that Diane, after the scandal at Elliot's company became public, was fired from her club job and now teetered on the edge of needing public assistance. I was truly relieved that I had collected the compensation in a lump sum. Diane's multiple daddies also found out who she really was, and one after another, they cut ties with her. No matter how much she cried, not a single person came to her aid. As for Elliot, he was fired from his company and has been trying to find a new job. But every resume he sends out gets rejected, and he's barely clinging to day labor gigs. He had to sell his house and car, and now lives in a rundown apartment that's over 50 years old. A mutual acquaintance told me he's barely getting by, living hand to mouth. Caitlin sold the family home and moved to the countryside, now living with Luke and his family. Her final words to me, "Thank you for everything," offered me a small sense of closure. That house was the product of all my endurance. But now, it's nothing more than a remnant of the past. After the divorce, I left the town I had grown used to. I bought a condo near the station and started fresh. The south-facing room, filled with sunlight, brightens not only the space but also my heart. On the balcony, I arranged my favorite herbs and seasonal flowers, and enjoying coffee at a small table each morning became part of my daily routine. In addition to the compensation and asset division, I also received unexpected support from Luke. The envelope he handed me, saying, "Thank you for all the care you gave," contained a considerable amount of money. His sincerity and words of gratitude touched me more deeply than anything else. After settling into my new life, I decided to try dating again. I don't know yet if I'll meet someone truly compatible. But now, I'm living without being held back by the past, firmly facing forward. Life can be restarted. No matter how late it is, no matter what age you are.